Well, you probably won't be able to tell it, but I've been dinking around editing this video for 3 days, and about to wear myself out, and I think I've gotten away from my original objective, which was just to share what I'm doing out here at the cabin with family and friends, especially those who don't get a chance to come out here very often. So that's really what I want to do, but I want it to be watchable, and through all that, I'm trying too hard to incorporate music and titles and all kinds of background stuff and all that. So I'm going to do the rest of this a little bit different, and just let you watch the video, and then I'd really be interested in your all's feedback. Do you want to have background music? I mean, is it more watchable if there's background music? Do you want more narration, me telling what I'm doing and what's going on, or just do you want to watch the videos? And do you like enjoy more inside stuff, outside stuff, whatever it might be? And I'm doing all this stuff anyway, and it doesn't take me any more time to videotape indoor stuff than outdoor stuff. And I want it to be stuff that people who do watch this enjoy watching. So if that makes sense, give me your feedback. Let me know what you think. I will say just a couple things before I shut up. It was colder than snot out here. We had about 2 inches of sleet, not freezing rain, but just sleet, and that stuff packed hard. And boy, it was slick. Driving on it, it was so hard you couldn't even, looking behind you, you hardly made, there were hardly any tire tracks left in it when you drove over it. A little bit later on here, follow up to that game camera test. A few weeks ago, I bought those 5 game cameras at Walmart on clearance, and I wanted to, before I opened all of them, I wanted to test one of them and see what kind of quality the pictures and the video, what level of quality those things are. My first test, and later on I compare some of the pictures I took, or the pictures the camera took behind the cabin, to some pictures from a game camera about a year ago down by the creek. And those pictures, the one with the bear and the hog on it, that technology is about 10 or 12 years older than this new camera, the one that's got, you'll see the skunk and the armadillo and the raccoon, the squirrel, and a couple of deer on it. Anyway, so I moved that camera down in the woods south of the cabin there. I didn't get to go nearly as far down in as I wanted to because it was so darn slick and pretty kind of dangerous to be down in there. Anyway, and then I got the wood stove in the cabin cranked up, had lunch, and just videotaped some of that and did some walking around, driving around, some scenery shots. And so anyway, let me know what you think. I'm just going to let the rest of this play. I may have a comment or two before it's over, but I hope you enjoy it and appreciate you tuning in. I don't know what that beeping noise is. It's something coming off of my equipment. I'm working with an iPhone, an old laptop that's probably 8 years old, and a $14 microphone from Walmart. So maybe my friend Large can do a little light research and find out what that beeping noise is, and let me know. This sloppy wood stove here in the cabin, I took that out of our old house we lived in for 24 years. And it didn't draft. It was down at a lower level. It never drafted very well, and was really only used a handful of times. And so when we built the cabin, I took it out and brought it out here. Man, it's been a dandy. I'll tell a story about that old 30-30 one of these days, that Marlin 30-30. That was the first firearm that I ever purchased on my own, just right after I turned 18 years old, and man, it's one of my prized possessions. Jordo, if you're watching, man, I haven't given up. Maybe one of these days. I'm thinking about upgrading some of my equipment. I want to make sure I keep doing this before I do that, but I got to tell you, the iPhone, it's kind of amazing the quality of the video. And I think mine's an 11. They've improved it, improved the technology even since they made this darn thing. If you're not an outdoors, woodsy kind of person, I think you might be amazed at how many critters there are roaming around out there in those hardwoods. These pictures are a good example of why I wanted to experiment with these cameras and run a test on this. Just one of them before I opened all of them up. That picture should not be fuzzy like that. That doe's walking through there. There's no reason that should have been well, it should have been a real clear picture. These pictures here are from a game camera that is about 10 or 11 years old. So the technology you think today in a game camera would be a lot better than it would have been 10 years ago. But I only took these pictures or these pictures were taken about a year ago down below the cabin close to the creek. But you can see how much better quality they are. Now these are daytime pictures in fairness to that other camera. This old buck, he's a warrior. This guy was all beat up, scarred up, tines broken off. He's probably an old deer, an old dominant buck that's on the downhill slide. But man, he was no doubt a fighter in his day, and apparently still is. His rack's all beat up, it's interesting some of the things you can see on these cameras. One lone turkey that came through there, probably a hen, looks like. Again, these pictures are from that game camera that's about 10 or 11 years old, but that's a fellow there that I don't think I'd want to run into. Walk up on him without him knowing I was coming. That's a big old feral hog, a male, a boar. And apparently there are two of them. I saw these pictures when I first looked at them last year. I thought they were the same hog, but those are two different hogs, I'm almost certain. So there was at least two of them that came through on that particular evening. This is the second time I've had a game camera out that got a picture of a bear. First time was in 2013, and then this guy, he hung around there for well over a minute right there in view of this camera. And a couple of these shots look like they were photoshopped, but they're not. That's just the glare of the when the infrared flash went off. And then you'll see here in a second, he must have seen the flash or heard the camera, because he comes right up there and apparently sticks his nose right up there at that camera. Didn't get a picture of him looking at it, but you can tell that's here in just a second is what he did right there. He's just right below that camera. Not a very big bear. Now we're back to the game camera, test camera number 1, we'll call it. That's a red and gray squirrel combo. That's where a red squirrel and a gray squirrel mated, and that's the outcome.
Darn skunk.
Haven't seen a lot of skunks, but I've got at least two of them. Well, at least one. There's two pictures of skunks about a day apart. There's another one. Could be the same skunk. Anyway, the first test on that new game camera, I'm going to call it inconclusive. I'm not tremendously excited about the quality of the pictures, but I want to put it in a different location now and try it again. So I reformatted that SD card, basically erased all the pictures. Thank you, incidentally, to the nice young man named Patel, who did a YouTube video on how to reformat these SD cards. I always had trouble with that. Anyway, I watched his tutorial and boom, I'm a businessman. I set my iPhone up on that tripod and then I walked around down in that area. That's the general area that I want to cover, that hillside from there all the way down to the creek. But it takes several cameras to do that. But for now, I just want to set one of these, this test camera number 1, up down there. And I was just looking around there trying to think like an animal. If I was an animal and traveling through that area, how would I come through there? There's a couple of real prominent game trails that I'm close to, but in a bunch of different animals will use the game trails. But in any event, I wanted that camera pointing away from the sun, so it didn't have a glare on it, and tried to get a good open area where it didn't have anything in front of it that would make the camera take pictures when there wasn't any animals there. So anyway, that's what I'm doing there, just looking for a good spot. I thought I had the right tree, and then I looked around and decided to move on down that hill just a little bit further, but it was treacherous. I should have had a couple of walking sticks with me, and I didn't. I picked up that one limb, and it helped me motivate a little bit. But I'd like to have got down in there further, but that's fine. This would be a good second test, and then after I see the pictures from it in a few days, I'll make a decision as to whether or not to keep those other 4 cameras or upgrade to a higher quality. Well, I know I've said it before. I got to say it again. That darn Filson coat that I got on there is a dandy. And so, Tom, thank you for that, man. That wool just really breathes, keeps you warm, but it also breathes so you don't get all stuffy and sweaty in it near as badly as you do some other fabrics. But I sure enjoy wearing that coat. That's a dandy. Plus, it looks good in the woods. I found out today that if you want to keep your coffee cup, your coffee hot, set it on top of wood stove. If you got a thick ceramic cup, set it on top of wood stove for just a couple of 2 or 3 minutes, and man, that darn cup was so hot I could hardly pick it up, and it stayed hot for a long time. So that was something new. Here's something you're not going to see on the Food Network, and it's because if they showed this on there, it would put a lot of those shows out of business. I've got a handful of friends that give me a fairly hard time about some of the stuff I come up with out here at the cabin, but I'm telling you, for not a whole lot of money and not a whole lot of time it takes to prepare some of this stuff, it tastes awful darn good. But here I'm just starting out with some summer sausage, which what's not to like about that? The fact that I'm cutting that up on a well-worn cutting board with an old knife that I've had for well over 40 years. My bride gave me that for Christmas the year before we got married, and I never get tired of using it and carrying it around. But anyway, I just slice up that summer sausage any way you like. I kind of like it in pretty good bite-sized chunks like that. I had an old red onion, passed the smell test. It'd been out there a while, but took it, as you can see, and cut it up to my liking. Man, I sure like me some red onion. I know Speed, he doesn't like red onion. He won't eat anything with onions, my friend Speedo, but I sure like some onions. So anyway, cut those up, nothing fancy. A lot of folks would have just thrown that onion away. my book, that'd been a waste. I can't get enough cooking out of a cast iron skillet. I really enjoy those darn things. But spread that out, and then I just take in this case, I took a can, whatever I had on hand. That happened to be a can of red kidney beans, syrup and all. You don't have to eat the syrup, all of it, but it helps out on cooking and the flavor and simmers real nicely. Can of chicken breast meat. Just dump that in there with broth and everything. That way you kind of got a stock between that syrup out of that the kidney beans and the broth out of that can of chicken breast, and then just stir that all up in there nicely, get it mixed up, and then I just rummaged through the just rummaged through the cabinets and see what I had that I thought might taste good. Some olive oil, some garlic pepper, sprinkle that around in there, some seasoning blend. That sounds good. And man, Montreal steak seasoning, are you serious? If you're not using that, you need to be. It is some awesome, awesome stuff. And so I sprinkle that around, and then just kind of crunch it up, move it around, stir it, tap on it a little bit. And the objective is to make it look like it's more involved than it is. And then you just slap it on top of the wood stove and let it go. I came back and put that lid from the Dutch oven over that to help it in the process and hold in some of that flavor. And I stirred a couple of times. And, it's not complicated, but I'm telling you what. Look at that. Look at that on a day whenever it started out at about 11 degrees. Get that old Janine Moss coffee cup going, or coffee pot, I mean. Stir that stuff up, and if you're going to try to tell me that that is not some good eating, I'm not believing you. I know you're not telling the truth. And if you say that, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you've never tried it. That's some fine eating right there. Hey, thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the Squirrel Ranch, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to try to post something at least once a week, and we really appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot.